All right, everyone. This is Christopher Prosch with Veterans for America First Chaplain Corps. This is our fourth episode, and I have an amazing gentleman, Reverend Kevin Mcgary. He is a fantastic individual who's committed to really fighting and taking on wokeism. He has an amazing organization. So, Kevin, tell us about yourself.
Brother, thank you for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity to come on and stand up for veterans, man. Are really the honor and the heroism that they don't get a lot of credit for. I just appreciate being a part of the show and being able to stand up with and for my brothers that have fought and are still fighting in the battlefield. So here a little bit about myself. I am the president and chairman of the Frederick Douglass Foundation of California. I am the executive with the Douglass Leadership Institute, both led by Bishop D. Nelson. When I saw what was happening in our streets a couple of years ago with BLM rioting and looting and really burning down Black and brown businesses by virtue of Antifa, and then just having a good old time in the streets. I was troubled. I was not only troubled because of what I was seeing. Now, everybody saw the 9 minutes and 40 seconds of what happened to George Floyd. We understand that that was horrible. It was a horrible thing to see. Whether or not you believe he was a drug addict, nobody deserves to necessarily die that way. So that was a horrific sight for a lot of people. But there was in our urban streets across America a really, really I think the response was over the top. We had over $2 billion in damage. We had 21 or so police officers and peace officers that were killed. We had thousands that were hurt. And then the coup de grace for me was we saw churches, pastors, literally encouraging their parishioners to go out and march with them. Yeah. So that was beyond the bell. I was like, this doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And then and so when I saw that, I said, well, wait a minute. And then churches started putting the black BLM signs and on their edifice in the fronts of the church. And I thought, this is a bizarre time in history. So what happened for me and my co-founder, Neil Mommen, we said, look, we need to have an alternative, a righteous and faithful alternative. We have a lot of people that are hurting, a lot of people that are grieving, and we need to give them a righteous organization that they can support. We had done the research on BLM and recognized that there were Marxists, that they were racist, that they were violent.
Yeah.
And so we really structured our organization, which is Every Black Life Matters, as the righteous and faithful alternative to BLM. And so ours is everything that they're not. So we stand for life from conception to the grave, from womb to the tomb. Because if we believe that every Black life matters, or every lives matter, or Black Lives Matter, we would have to stand up for Black life that's being summarily targeted and destroyed in the womb by virtue of Planned Parenthood and Margaret Sanger. So that's number one. Number two, we stand for nuclear family. We stand for fatherhood. We stand for school choice. We stand for free markets and capitalism. We stand for nonviolence. So everything that they are, we're not. And we have been having a fantastic time, mostly in white conservative churches, unfortunately, because a lot of the ethnic churches still want to hold on to a certain level of Marxist demonism. They won't admit it, but that's what it is.
100%.
And I call them out on it all the time. So anyway, so we're out there, and some people would say, well, why did you borrow any of their moniker? Why did you borrow? Because every Black life, or is that still a superiority statement? Are you still dividing us? And I tell people, no, it's actually an equality statement. And here's why. Margaret Sanger, when she said, look, I don't want the word to get out, but I want to destroy the Negro population. She said, exterminate, fully exterminate the Negro population. She didn't say Negroes and Asians, Negroes and Hispanics, Negroes. She said Negroes. She said Black. Okay, so what we are is, first and foremost, our statement, Every Black Life Matters. If you put TOO at the end of it in your mind's eye, you understand that we're a statement of equality, not of superiority. Because here's what's happening. Other ethnicities are being born at this rate. Blacks are being born at this rate. Okay, so we're trying to illuminate the fact that, look, every Black life matters too. Can we at least be born at the same rate that everybody else is?
Exactly.
And what that means is that we have to stand against abortion. We have to stand against the the reckless abuse and the plight within the Black community that's designed by policy to destroy those communities. So that's a long story, trying to shorten it. I know you have limited time here, but excuse my going on, but that's why we're here.
No, 100%, Kevin. I mean, and for our listeners, that's so true. I mean, people have such a distorted perspective of abortion statistics. I mean, most Americans have no idea on purpose from the left that an overwhelming majority, I think it's what, almost 50, 60% of abortion clinics are in predominantly Black neighborhoods.
No, much greater than that. Sorry to correct you.
No, yeah.
Pardon my interruption.
Yeah,
it's
please
80 to 90%.
Oh.
80 to 90% are within walking distance of Black and brown communities today, right now. So
awful. And then even Margaret Sanger, she was a horrible racist, the founder of Planned Parenthood. And what's so funny to me is, they always lie about how, oh, it's for women's health. I mean, which is such a lie. I'm sorry. In no way is an abortion psychologically, physically, mentally, emotionally a positive for a woman's body. But anyway, on a side note though, it's just, Black America has been killed on purpose from leftist policies by Planned Parenthood since Margaret Sanger, a massive racist, created it. So it's just, and so what came out recently, Kanye West came out saying he's tired of the Black Americans being killed, predominantly by abortion, predominantly by gang violence. The left on purpose does not want to address those issues.
They do not want to solve those problems. So here's the thing. Some people would say, no, we are committed to solving the problem. Here's the deal. I encourage everybody, look at Barack Obama's legacy, man. He was in there for 8 years. His home city was Chicago. Over his 8 years, Chicago was over the top with homicide statistics. Mm-hmm. That brother did not lead one march. He did not lead one march. Not one save the children, not one, and he had the ability. This is the problem that I have. He had the ability as a statesman of the United States to say, look, we're going to stop the killing. Mm-hmm. We are going to lead marches every weekend until you guys stop. Yeah. He could have done it because he had the moral and political authority to actually do something about it. Not a thing. He completely ignored his home city and allowed the murders to continue. To this day, Chicago is a homicide city where most children, innocent children, are killed by virtue of stray bullets.
Exactly.
And I'm like, well, where's the outrage? How come?
Exactly, Kevin.
This is outrageous.
Kevin, that's a fantastic point. That's further hypocrisy from the left. The whole world freaks out when there's a school shooting in Texas, and that's a horrible, horrible travesty. But no one, particularly Democrats, no one talks about 20 Black children that get killed every single weekend in Chicago, in Baltimore, in St. Louis, in New Orleans. I'm so tired of Democrats selectively caring. And then they say, oh, gun violence. No, it is a cultural problem that you do not want to deal with at all. So stop pretending about kids in other states when, again, Lori Lightfoot, you do nothing to help the predominantly Black children that are being butchered every weekend in Chicago.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. So we have the killing. And then number two, Barack Obama's a smart guy. And he championed Margaret Sanger and Planned Parenthood. Matter of fact, I think they gave him an award. They gave Hillary an award. So for him to not know that Margaret Sanger said her infamous quote to Procter & Gamble heir, she was talking to a Gamble guy at the time, that we don't want the word to get out, but we want to exterminate the Negro population. For him not to acknowledge that that's a reality. Now, and so for all of the bleeding hearts to say, well, we still need women's health. And okay, we do. Mm-hmm. So if you want to continue to support Planned Parenthood, here's the deal. You demand then that they take their clinics that are within walking distance of all the Black communities, and you tell them, look, if it's all about women's health, if you say there's nothing racist about it, here's the deal. Target and Walmart throughout the country are where mostly predominant women congregate. So if you are sincere, go to the back end of every Target, Walmart in the country and make women's health care accessible to everybody. Why are you in the Black community? Come on, man.
100%, Kevin. I'll never forget back in 2012 when Paul Ryan was running for vice president with Mitt Romney. He was asked that very question actually in a rally in I believe in Wisconsin, actually his home state. And Paul Ryan had a, I mean, he's not my biggest, he's not my biggest. I don't really care for him very much, but he did have an excellent rebuttal. A woman asked, how can individuals get proper female health care? And he said, look, most clinics, most hospitals do the exact same thing as Planned Parenthood does for women's healthcare issues, minus abortions. So your argument that women need Planned Parenthood is a complete and utter lie. It's built off of the backs of 60 million children dead in the past 70 years, predominantly Black babies.
Yep.
That is the biggest hypocrisy the left has, and they on purpose do not want to talk about it. But Kevin, let's get back to your other issue though. That's what's so funny about Black Lives Matter. I remember 2-3 years ago, I was yelling and criticizing my friends over and over and over again, saying Black Lives Matter organization is a horrible leftist evil organization. And then they tried saying things like, oh, we need to understand, we need to, George Floyd and this and that, we need to have this conversation. I'm like, that's fine. But how does rioting in Bismarck, North Dakota, how does rioting in Pierce, South Dakota, how does rioting in Dallas, how does that antiquate to justice for what George Floyd went through in a Democrat-run city, run by a Democrat police department, run by a Democrat governor, but yet somehow the conservatives and Trump were at fault for that? What happened to George Floyd was a systemic problem in a Democrat-run city. But even beyond that, though, how does that justify burning down Black businesses, burning down, predominantly Black organizations? How does that antiquate to, and furthermore, Black Lives Matter organization got caught embezzling tens of millions of dollars. Their organization leader, who is a radical Marxist, buying multi-million dollar mansions in Beverly Hills, predominantly white neighborhoods. It's just that's why I really appreciate your organization, because you actually fight for every Black life matters. You actually attack the heart issue, and it's non-political. You bring real issues and say, look, wokeism is a disease. I'm here to talk about actually helping everyday average grassroots Black Americans across the country. So let's talk more about that.
Yeah, so we believe fundamentally our statement, every Black life matters, EBLM, is a statement that really all lives matter. And I already talked about that. It's a statement of equality, okay? So once we get past that, the other thing that we've been doing is we've been helping communities really fight back against critical race theory.
Yes.
Now, everybody kind of assumes or believes that most Black people, you like critical race. No, critical race theory is racist, all right? So I'm sincere about racism, right? I'm sincere about any supremacy, all right? So when you start to adopt or imbibe foolishness, demonic foolishness like CRT, like Black liberation theology generally, which are all Marxist, social justice, which is Marxist, then you're actually trying to flip the script. It's not level the playing field. You're trying to say, no, there's Black superiority. So Dr. Martin Luther King had a poignant statement. He says, look, Black superiority is just as dangerous and just as poisonous as white superiority. Basically, Black supremacy is just as dangerous as white supremacy, is what he said. And so I believe in no supremacy, man. We're all equal. We're all human beings. So why do we have to try to flip the script? Why do we have to try to, take the power back because we need to be powerful? No, that's not solving the problem. We are interdependent, right? We have an interdependency across races. If we're going to live in this society in America together, we need to figure out how we're going to be together, right? So in order for us to really begin to change the narrative on this stuff, it's not, hey, I want to make sure that all whites understand their guilt and their shame and their prejudice that they did against us. That's foolishness. All we're doing is we're creating more of a problem and we're further dividing people. So what I did is I really wanted to get to the roots of what's happening with the whole woke movement, okay? So I started to write a book on wokeism. And I really felt divinely inspired that, I thought in my natural mind, hey, I need to start with Marx because everybody knows that wokeism is rooted in Marxism, right? Yeah. And I really felt divinely inspired. No, that's not where you start. You start with who influenced Marx and Engels.
Yep.
And so I went back and I looked at all Marx and Engels stuff all the early writings were dedicated to Charles Robert Darwin.
Yes, I.
And if you know anything about Darwin, here's my book, by the way. If you know anything about Darwin, all right, basically it's woke up and it's finally putting an axe to the taproot of white supremacy and racism in America. So here, you know anything about Darwin, you understand that Darwin, in his first book on natural selection, the subtitle was "For the Preservation of Most Favored Races."
Yep.
And then in his second book, The Descent of Man, he went into a lot more detail what he meant. And the descent of man, he characterized that we have to preserve and protect the intellect of the white Caucasian European, right? And but you know those blacks, you could see my evolutionary theories playing out because those blacks, they're subhuman, they're gorillas, apes, and savages. All quotes from Charles Darwin. Inconvenient, yes, because I know there's a lot of people that love Darwin. He was a great scientist. Okay. Let's separate his science from his evolutionary theories.
Yeah.
Right. So he did bring forth some good science. I'm not going to argue and debate that with anybody. But his evolutionary theories were jacked up, and especially for people like me.
Yeah.
He literally, in one fell sweep in his one full sweep in his Descent of Man, characterized white supremacy by saying, "Hey, we got to protect our intellectual and resourceful," and then racism in one fell swoop by saying, "Look, these guys are subhuman. They're apes, gorillas, and savages." Right. So this book goes through intricate details, exact quotes, letters, private letters, everything, fully dismantling the woke argument. Right. And it puts it in proper perspective. If you're woke today, that's fine. You can be woke, but just understand you are in full embrace without any equivocation. There's no nothing you can do about it. You're in full embrace of white supremacy and racism.
Yep. 100%. No, first off, your book "Woked Up" has to be read by everyone. If I had it my way, it would be in every public school, just to help educate the next generation that wokeism is proven time and time again that it is based completely in Marxism, that the left are fully embracing socialistic, communistic practices. I have a friend of mine who just came out with another book of his own too, basically proving that so many senators, Kristen Sinema of Arizona, Raphael Warnock of Georgia, Mark Kelly of Arizona, John Fetterman of Pennsylvania, all have communistic ties, if not borderline involvement. And that's kills me, and people need to know about this. But anyway, so let's go back to the American church embracing BLM. Why do you think they did that?
A lot of them were. Here's the thing. So a lot of pastors are radical. So here, let me separate.
Yeah.
So ethnically, the black pastors really want their opportunity to come up, and I'm making generalizations here. So there's always some that are not okay, but they really wanted to come up, and so the conversations I was hearing is, look, this is our opportunity where our white brothers are inviting us to the table, and we need to take this opportunity. Let's drive with this racial reconciliation stuff. They want to ask us and interview us. Man, this is our opportunity to sort of level the playing field, get some of that money, get some of that prestige, and let's grab it because this is our opportunity, right? Unfortunately, it was flawed thinking. Jesus continued to say, look, if I be lifted up, I'll do all of drawing. We don't have to, look for opportunities of tragedy to try to maximize our ability to be seen or to be heard or to be revered amongst our, white brothers and sisters. That's not, that's still, sort of trying to level up, right? And that's completely antithetical, right? Number two, we had a lot of white pastors that were completely guilty. So we see it today with John Piper, completely guilty and leftists, right? So they'll do anything to protect their real religion, their real God. Their real God is a party. They won't admit it, but I'm telling you, based on the actions of these people, it's clear. Because I've talked to them, and I said, look, why can't you just vote biblically? Oh, Kev, you just want me to vote for a Republican. I say, no, I just want you to vote biblically. Why can't you just do that? Well, if I did that, I'd always vote. Okay, well, let's just further. Why do you have to be involved with fighting so hard for the Democrat Party? You're God, And so I challenged them with that. I say, look, it's clear where your passions lie. it's clear where your first love is. It's not Jesus.
Yeah.
You don't have the sufficiency of the cross.
Right.
If you had the sufficiency of the cross, you would, Ephesians 2:14-22, where we see Jesus broke every barrier between Jew and Gentile, male, female, heaven and earth. Every barrier was dealt with and fully reconciled, that word, unto himself. So how is it then that you, Mr. Pastor, can actually parse your lips to talk about racial reconciliation? Yeah. It's arrogant. It's already been done.
100%.
It's been done. Jesus did it. So these are the types of things that I sort of challenge pastors with. I exhort them to kind of just embrace the word of God. It's clear. It's sufficient enough. It is our resource and our guide. So we had guilt on one side, guilt and shame from a lot of the white pastors, and that's why they would embrace it. And then we had the opportunity for more power and more influence with black pastors. That's kind of how I saw it.
No, 100%. I mean, that's what I always challenge so many times with pastors and priests and reverends all across the country. What I've discovered really is all those churches, predominantly major liberal cities, St. Louis, New York City, and so forth. A lot of times the pastors, the priests, the reverends of those churches, they will have the gay pride flag or the Black Lives Matter flag.
Yes.
For recruitment tactics only, because they have replaced the truth of the gospel with popularity. And that's what it comes down to. And it breaks my heart so many times because I'm like, do you understand that the gospel is not about God's love for you? Yes, God loves you. Absolutely. Jesus loves you 1000%. But 99.999% of the gospel is about being obedient to God's laws. That's what Jesus begged us to do. He set a shining example of it. And so the American church has got to get right. And you're 100% right. These former titans of our faith, the Al Mohlers, the Tim Kellers, they have completely bent down to the woke mob. And some of them are blatant Democrats. And I'm not saying the Republican Party is perfect by any means. No, I mean, in my opinion, 60-70% of the Republican Party is garbage. They're not real conservatives. Now 30-40% of them still are. And I think that fragment is worth saving. But just when it comes to Black Lives Matter, when it comes to abortion, the American church has got to step up and say respectfully and lovingly, something here doesn't seem right. And we're willing to reach across the aisle and sit down with you, have a real conversation with you. But I think it's getting to the point where the left doesn't even want to do that. I mean, we're seeing them. Most of these Democrat politicians don't even want to debate the Republican counterparts in these upcoming elections. So so that's why it's so refreshing to have an individual like you who actually has an organization actually committed to bringing up real issues and not just lip service.
Yeah. Let me say one more thing about the abortion issue. I know you probably have other issues you want to get onto, but here's the thing that's really, really, really troubling about this. Okay. So we had the overturning of Roe v. Wade via the Dobbs decision. Okay. So everywhere else in history where we had the Supreme Court correct an erroneous law, like slavery, like the Jim Crow laws, when those were overturned, it was just great. It was Jubilee. It was great celebration, right? It was like Juneteenth, right? So we had the Supreme Court literally overturn an incorrect law. They had been defined incorrectly. They were correcting the Supreme Court. They were correcting laws, right? And then we have half of the church, and I mean literally half, that did not celebrate. Now, this was a curse on America. And from the spiritual realm, I would imagine that God was saying, okay, I'm going to release you of this curse that was on you because of your murdering all of these children and really sacrificing them to Moloch, right?
Yes.
So all of that we have the opportunity to stop it, and we have literally half the body of Christ says, man, I really think that we needed to fully embrace that. Now, this is so demonic because if they understood anything about where abortion came from, let me just give you one quick. So one quick thing here. Here's the thing: Charles Darwin and his first cousin Francis Galton were clearly supremacists. Darwin was such a supremacist to the extent that he married his first cousin because he wanted to keep his intellectual capacity, and even though he knew the risks to his children. He had 7 children that were fine, but 3 of them, he had a total of 10 with his first cousin. But 3 of them had issues, okay? So he knew that, but he wanted to protect his intellectual capacity. Now, Francis Galton was a statistician. I mean, a world-class statistician. It was great. Francis Galton says, look, Charles, his older cousin, he said, look, Charles, these other ethnicities are really going to overpopulate the planet. They're going really much further. can we come up with some sort of scientific justification
Yeah.
for exterminate? So they said, look, okay, let's create this word eugenics. So they are literally the fathers of eugenics. You can check it out. It's a fact. The fathers of eugenics created eugenics. Eugenics means well born. Okay. Now, what they said is, look, anybody that is not well born, anybody that's not European, Caucasian, right, Aryan, they can be exterminated because we really need to protect the intellectual capacity of the whole planet. So this is literally a scheme concocted for exterminating God's creation. It came from nowhere. There was no science. There was no justification for it other than white supremacy. So what I tell all my pro-abort friends and pastors today is, look, you want to continue to be that kind of toe the line and be a pro-abort person, that's fine. But this is the history. Now, if you want to accept that history, that abortion was literally created to maintain white supremacy, that's why. That's the entire justification. And I can't change it. You can't change it. That's why it's here. Then fine. You have to own the label. Just hold your hand up and say, look, I'm a white supremacist and I'm a racist because I fully support abortion.
Exactly.
You understand? Do you understand? There is no other there's no other way to quantify it, right?
Well, and that's why I wanted to have you on the show today, just because again, your book, addresses all these issues. That's exactly what wokeism tries to do. They try to basically rewrite history. They try to basically remove anything that they don't like, and Democrats are famous for that. Their history of their party is atrocious, starting with Andrew Jackson, what he did with the Trail of Tears, and so many other things. But even with or what about Senator Robert Byrd from West Virginia? Bill Clinton's comments, about the KKK with President Obama. It's just at his I believe it was his funeral. It's just awful. And that's what's funny to me. A lot of times, or even reparations, that issue is just hilarious. To talk about how could you possibly quantify past grievances? Should all of Europe demand reparations from Italy for what the Romans did to the entire continent? Should all of Europe, demand reparations from France for what Napoleon did? It's just, it's completely outrageous. Every single culture has had an adverse effect on every other culture in America, in Europe, in Asia. It's just, you can point the finger endlessly at everyone. And even in America, if we're going to have reparations for the Black community, we might as well step up and have reparations for the Jewish community too.
Here's how I view reparations. And
Please, yeah.
So I challenge people with this. I say, okay, I'll play the game. Let's go with the reparations conversation. Here's the deal. Reparations is always it's never generalized to an entire population, right? It's always specific to the faction that did the harms.
Yep.
So with that in mind, if you want my progressive brothers and sisters to go down this line of reparations, well, let's have that conversation. Here's the deal. There was only one faction in America that enslaved Blacks, and they were Southern Democrats. It just so happens that the Democrats are still here today.
Yep.
And they have billions of dollars in their coffers. Yep. So if we want to have the conversation about reparations, great. Let's do it. Let's all go and march to the Democrat headquarters and demand that they pay the Blacks for what they did. Because It was only that faction. Remember, it was the the Republican Party was literally started as an abolitionist party. It was the Northern abolitionists that actually set people like me free. It was not generalized. Okay.
And that's what's so funny is then the Democrats try to lie to people and say, oh, no. There was this big switch back in the 60s and 70s where Southern Democrats became Republicans and Republicans became Democrats in the North. I'm like, first off, that is one of the biggest lies I've ever heard. If that was true, then why did the South, Texas, West Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, why did all these Southern states, then why did they flip from Democrat to Republican in the mid 90s? That's what kills me. I'm like, Democrats had complete control of Texas until about 1992. They had most control of West Virginia until about the early 2000s. So no, the South didn't become Republican until about the Gingrich Revolution. So it's just, and that's so factually based off of the political party strength and how it switched in the 90s.
Absolutely.
that no Democrat, no professor wants to talk about. So they lie and say, "Oh no, it was in the 70s and 60s." False
No
lies.
big switch. That did not happen. And what I tell people is, look, what happened in the 1800s happened in the 1800s by one particular party. That particular party and all of its roots are still here today, still doing horrible deeds within the Black community,
Yeah,
by preventing school choice, by encouraging fatherlessness, and all of these other things. So if we want reparations, we have to go right to that party and demand it. And
exactly.
so, and the same thing with Tulsa. Now, the Tulsa thing I think is really, really horrendous, right? The Black Wall Street. That was, I don't
Yes.
know if everybody read that story, but that story is absolutely abhorrent. And what
Yeah.
I tell people is, look, America generally doesn't owe Tulsa reparations. What you should do, if you're sincere, those families that were affected, that were, the lineage of the people that had their businesses destroyed in Tulsa, are still in and around Tulsa. There's a handful of families, maybe 100 or 200. You can go to those families and say, the city of Tulsa will give you reparations in some form,
Mhm.
right? Property, whatever it is. But that's a localized issue that if you want to push reparations, you have the opportunity to do that. This generalized, every taxpayer owes me something, is ridiculous. I use the example of, if I run over my neighbor's dog because the dog was in my driveway and I didn't see it, I can't go to my city mayor, or I can't answer a lawsuit from my neighbor and say, look, the city that I live in actually is responsible for this whole thing. The judge would laugh at me. He said, no, 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 Mr. McGary, you ran over the dog. If you ran over the dog, you owe this family restitution for the dog because you did it. So it's ridiculous for us to say, oh, it's generalized. Every taxpayer owes us now. How's that?
Yeah, no, I mean, more recently, I always, I love, we're running out of time here, but real briefly, I love the more recent, Queen Elizabeth's passing was sad for the history of Great Britain's monarchy. But what was funny is the second Prince Charles became King Charles, the left media unanimously went after him, saying, "You demand, we demand reparations from your royal family." And I love how CNN was embarrassed because one of the spokespersons for the royal
That
family
was great.
came out and said, well, okay, then why don't we hold the former royal families of Africa, because the African kings and warlords were selling their own
Absolutely.
into slavery. So,
Absolutely.
we're all for accountability, but let's hold everyone accountable then. Not just one segment of the population. But anyway, again, it's just, guys, that's more about what we're talking about here. Reverend Kevin Mcgary is a fantastic, fantastic individual. He has an amazing organization called Every Black Life Matters, and he actually attacks the real root issues in Black communities that nobody, particularly the left, wants to focus on or even care about. And more to the point, guys, the best way to attack wokeism is to educate yourself. You know,
Yep.
don't just listen to whatever Google tells you. Don't just listen to headlines from CNN or from even Fox News for that matter.
Yeah.
Get on DuckDuckGo, challenge, read a book, actually verify facts, because we're
Yeah.
turning a headline society where everything is just, oh, so CNN told me that. That's just what I need to think and believe. Oh, Fox News said this. That's just 100% what I need to believe. It's like, no, absolutely not. Mainstream media is wholeheartedly lying to you. Please
Absolutely.
do your own fact checking yourself. So,
Yep.
but Mr. McGary, anything else before I let you
Yeah.
go?
Real quick, just a couple of things. So if you want to really get all the footnotes,
Yes,
private letters, all the things of the woke movement, and be able to quantify to your friends, neighbors, and family, because they're all swept up in it, to
yes.
bring them along to truth and help them get this book. It's on Amazon. Just type in "woked" with a D up, and McGary, McGary. You'll get it. It'll come right to you. Now, the other thing is we have our website. Every Black Life Matters is actually everyblm.com. Everyblm.com. You can go there. You can become a partner. You can support us in any ways. You'll see all of our stuff there, what we stand for, what we're doing, how we do it. Everything is there. Number three, and if any of you are in Southern California, our organization is providing a absolute no charge, for free, training and certification for racial unity. Okay. What that means for you is if you have a business, or if you be an employee of somebody and they're trying to get you to, take anti-racism training and all of this, is that those are political, those are ideological, those are Marxist, and they're not solving problems. They're further dividing the workplace. What we're doing is we're actually providing you with real racial unity training by virtue of facts that mostly come from this book, and we're helping you identify how do we get to the root cause and how do we actually change the conversation about race in America. So we have 5 modules we're doing at Awaken Church the end of October, October 29th. That's a Saturday. If you come there, it's all day. You come there for whatever modules you take, you'll be certified for those particular modules of completion. And so that's what we're doing to help out the community. Again, it's no charge. It's in San Diego, Awaken Church. Now, lastly, if you haven't realized, I have a logo here. Y'all Woked Up. Y'all Woked Up University is on YouTube. Okay, so if you go to YouTube and just type in Y'all Woked Up and subscribe, what I do daily are 1-minute shorts on current events in a non-woke format. So I give you my perspective on current events, what's happening, and etc. Y'all Woked Up University on YouTube. And mostly they're shorts, but I do some long form podcast interviews periodically as well. So anyway, those are the ways you can learn more about us, be in contact with us, be praying for us, and we appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely, Kevin. I really appreciate it. I know we're getting pretty close here, so I will let you go, but we will make sure this is posted and we'll get your word out. I really appreciate it. Woked Up, get the book, please. Everyone, Christopher Prosch with Veterans America First. Thank you and have a wonderful day.